Hey folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to another episode of our Unity base building game series, codenamed Project Porcupine. Now, we're going to do some more work on our character and furniture selection interface in this episode. But before that, I was going to go and clean up these PSD files, because it was like, alright, we can finally get rid of these and save a whole bunch of space in our project downloads, because the PSDs, the Photoshop files, are quite large. But I forgot, we are still directly linking to these tiles over here in our tile sprite controller, which is double plus on good. We're going to have to go and make some changes to that at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and start and just delete this PSD files folder. We don't need it anymore. We're going to save a whole lot of space. That's going to be fantastic. But of course, that breaks this aspect of things. Now, I could, because we do have these PNG versions of the same thing, we could, well, actually, I can't actually drag that in there because, again, anything that's in streaming assets is not, it's not actually processed or imported by Unity, so it doesn't know what these things are, which is why we don't get a preview of our PNGs, so I can't drag that in. Plus, I wouldn't want to. The whole idea is that was a temporary little hard coding until we got a better system in place, and we have a better system in place now. We have the means for being able to load these in. See, all these fix me. We don't want to have that right now. So we're going to actually remove the references to these floor sprites and empty sprites entirely, because here, what we're instead going to do is just say sprite manager dot current dot get sprite. For category name is going to be tiles. Tile or tiles? As I said, I'm pretty sure I went and made everything singular, and I did. All right, there we go. So tile is the category, and the sprite name is going to be empty with an uppercase letter. All right, looks like I was pretty consistent with those, which is good. So we're going to have that, and then over here, we've got to update this line as well. So we're just going to grab this bit here and say empty sprite or floor sprite, like so. And I think that brings us to where we want to be. Let's go ahead and see if we can still load one of our maps. And indeed we can. We got floors, we've got empties. Excellent, and all the furniture is there. That is wonderful. So that's great. I just want to take care of that before we went any further. And now we can go back to our selection interface. Now, last time we did set it up so that when we were clicking on things, we are selecting the tile. We're just not getting any visual feedback that any of that is happening. Did we not have debug log information for that? I might have cleaned it out, actually. Let's see. That was in mouse controller because, of course, I think it makes a lot of sense. Oh, I forgot to embiggen the text. Sorry about that. Hey, we do have this in here. I really don't have any the debug info for that. I guess not. Yeah, I went ahead and cleaned that out. Let me just confirm. I want to make sure that things are actually happening when we click on these tiles here. Click, click, click. Yeah, there we go. Good. So we're cycling between the index of 1, which is the furniture, and the index of 3, which is the tile itself. Now, we are not currently doing the character, right? We are skipping that over. When we click on a tile, we are creating the stuff in tile. We're creating an array, and the first field in that is where our character is going to be, and it's currently null. Because if we click on a tile that's got a character, we want to assume that the character should be selected first, and then go to the furniture, then to the inventory, and then finally to the tile itself. So this first slot is supposed to be for the character itself. But right now we're just grabbing a null, and the reason is, I don't remember, but I think the issue was that the tile doesn't actually know if it's got a character inside. And it doesn't. Right? There's no reference that goes that way. Characters know which tile they belong to. Character over here. Right? It's got a current tile. So the problem is that really a tile can technically contain more than one character. Because you can imagine that characters are passing through one another. Yeah. And so in a sense, the two characters are both part of the tile. But I don't know if we ever want them to like have more than one character resting in a tile. Like, you can imagine a situation where maybe a tile belongs to a character. A character has claimed one tile if he is standing in it. And then maybe people go around him or something of that nature. But even then, I'm not even sure that's correct. What happens when a character is standing in a doorway? Do we want the character to actually block the doorway? Probably not. And in fact, almost every other base building game I can think of, Dwarf Fortress, RimWorld, Prison Architect, like those types of things, characters don't block areas. Again, they might slow you down when you walk through it, but that's about it. So the idea that a tile only ever contains one character is a bit flawed. But maybe we could still have the tile know what characters, plural, are in it just for the purpose of this clicking. That's one way of doing it. Alternatively, and I mean, it's not too bad. The way we've got this set up, we don't have a limit on how much stuff is in a tile. We could have, you know, car 1, car 2, car 3. Like, there's no reason we couldn't have multiple characters in the same tile, and we can still just click through it all that. There's a little bit of oddity that can happen if characters move in and out of tiles. We'll deal with that after? It's an interesting question, actually. Yeah, there's all these little tiny things. That's actually kind of interesting. Because what we can do, instead of asking the tile, hey, what character is in you? What we could do is we could do a raycast, you know, a 2D version of the raycast, and see if there's any, you know, what's under our tile, or what's under our mouse, and specifically get a list of any characters, plural, that's under our mouse at that point, regardless of where it's moving, and we can add it to this array. But then what happens if they move in and out of those things? You can see that there's a lot of like weird little outstanding question marks that aren't clear to answer. You know, there are mechanically sound ways to program this in, but from a user point of view, what is the correct interpretation of doing things? We could just skip characters, but that doesn't make sense. I mean, obviously, I think if you click on a character, you want to be able to select the character. So what do we do? What's the answer? And what happens when a character leaves a tile? We've got to update this selection box. I guess what we could do, all right, is this. The first time you click on a tile, and also we're going to put in some sort of different selection system when you do a box select. A box select is a completely different thing with completely different kinds of mechanics that will lead to a different result here. Right now we're just doing a single selection. I guess what we'll do, when you click, and it's a new tile, so we don't have a selection or the tiles don't match, we'll do a raycast under the mouse. And then I guess every time you click, we're going to have to do a new raycast and update the this portion of it. Actually, that's okay. So that's all right. So on the else here, we do need to raycast against the characters in the tile, and if there has been a change, then we need to reset our subselection, probably. I'm actually not even sure we need to do that, because worst case scenario, so it changes, we have more or less characters or different characters in the list. We still increment it by 1. We still do a mod based on the length. So even if the length changes or anything like that, it'll be okay. You might not be clicking through in the order that you expect, but in the chaos of like a bunch of characters moving in and out, it's probably fine. Now, I think in the end, the tiles, I can suspect that because of lots of reasons. Like, again, let's say having a character in a tile doesn't interrupt pathfinding, but we still want characters to move more slowly, say if they're trying to move past a character, which still means that at some point we need to know if a character is in a tile. So I think, all right, here's what we're going to do. We are going to set up an array here in our tile. Our tile is going to have, we'll make it public because why not? For now, again, we'll clean it up later if need be. Characters. So this is, sorry, this should be a list. List characters. So this is the list of characters that considers, oh, we don't have the generics, that considers this tile to be their current tile. And we can manage that. Well, I think for now, again, it's a public, we'll just deal with it. For now, we will have the cur tile in here will be a function. So it's going to set, I guess that means now I need a private tile, cur tile, like that. The get will just return cur tile. And the set will set cur tile to be equal to the value, but then it will say cur tile dot characters dot add this. And actually, before this happens, it will take the old cur tile and remove this. So if a character considers a tile to be its current tile, then it will also include itself in the list of characters that that tile has. So it'll remove itself from the old one and add it to the new one. I don't know if this throws an exception if we're not in it. I guess we'll find out in a second and see if this throws any errors. So now every tile will always know about any character that considers that spot to be a thing. That way we don't have to do any array casts, which is nice. So what we're going to do here is... Well, that's interesting. What if... No, because I was going to say, the first item in this, we could just have a pointer to the array. So index 0 in our stuff in tile would just be an array of characters. But I don't think I want that. I think I really do want this to be sort of exploded out. So really, we're going to do something like... like what? Are we going to... We're going to prepend... That's actually an interesting question. I guess what we're going to do is change this a little bit. We're going to make a new array here with a size that is equal to the tile under mouse dot characters dot count plus 3. So that's going to initiate the array, and then we will set each one of those bits, each one of those parts, I guess. So it's going to be stuff in array. We're going to set it to a particular one. This is going to be something like, and we're setting it from the back. So this would be -3 is the furniture. I'm not sure this is the best way to do it, but let's go with it. All right, so the length. Oh, I'm actually not doing this correctly. Dot length. There we are. That's what I meant to say. So the last 3 spots will still be taken up by, in reverse order, the tile, the inventory, the furniture. And then the spots before that, for each character, C in tile under mouse dot characters. I guess we're going to need a for loop, actually. For, which is tile under mouse dot characters dot length, or dot count, because that's a list, that's right. I don't know why they chose count versus length there. It always seemed a little odd to me not to have it be consistent, but there was probably a good reason. So again, I'm not convinced that this is the best way to do it. But we're going to do this. So make sure stuff in tile is big enough to handle all the characters plus the 3 extra values, like that. Copy the character references. So we're not making a duplicate of the characters here. We're just copying over the pointer, basically. Now, assign references to the other 3 sub-selections available. So we've got that, and then we select the first non-null entry. So, I mean, if there's any characters, this will always be selecting the first character, but otherwise, like this will never be null. These will always have some sort of value in here, but it's entirely possible that the number of characters we have are 0, which means the new object will be an array of 3, which then means that this will loop 0 times because the character count will be 0. So the only things we'll have in here are these 3 values over here, because the length is 3, so 3 minus 3 is 0, so the 0th, the first, the second in the array, which is great, and then we find the first null one, non-null one in some way. But here, so it's not array cast, we're not doing these array casts, but rebuild the array of possible sub-selections in case characters moved in or out of the tile. So we're basically going to be repeating the previous step, which means to me what we're going to do is have a void, not a void, because it's returning a selection info. Rebuild my selection info. So what we're going to do, actually, I guess we could just make it a void, like this. Because what I'm going to do is grab all this stuff, copy it into here, and it needs a tile under mouse. Tile under mouse. There we go. So this is going to call rebuild my selection info with that. And then here it's going to rebuild it using my selection. Well, I guess it's still tile under mouse. It doesn't actually matter. So we do it each time. But the difference is that, I guess we could move it back over here. Well, yeah, no matter what, we're going to be doing this. So we make sure we've got a tile in the mouse here. Then we rebuild the my selection info here. But we need to remember what the old tile was. So if we do this, we eliminate what the old tile was, so I could save it in a temporary variable. You know what? Let's just do this. This is going to be fine. So either way, we rebuild the info into the mouse after we determine if we're the same tile or the old one, or our new one. Here we're a new one, so after we rebuild it, we just grab the first null one, whereas here, after we rebuild it, we just increment our selection by 1, and it gets looped around, and everything should be hunky-dory and awesome. So let's give that a try. So now there's actually going to be a variable number of things in an array. All right, so we've got some nice errors here. Excellent. First one is over here on line 37. Oh. Wait, really? Oh, I forget to initialize this. Where is our constructor? Constructor over here for tiles is equal to new. This. Is that the only constructor for tile, or do we have an empty one? No, that's the only constructor. Okay, so now that list will get initialized. Or not. Tile. This should be the only place that it gets initialized. So then, how can this be null? Object reference not set to an... Oh, because we don't have a cur tile already. If cur tile not equals null. Okay, so that other thing was a bug, but this is a whole other bug. There we go. So the first time we said we don't have a current tile, so we can't do things to it. So there we go. So that should be getting rid of that. So we had 2 issues there, which leads to confusion. Okay, there we go. Let's load. Everything is looking fine. And if I get down to the bottom of this list here, and I click here, there we go. Huh. Okay, it's not looping the way we'd like. Oh, because we're resetting. Yeah, hold on. Because our index is getting reset. All right. So only here will we instantiate a new one. Here we've still got the same one. I mean, really we only have to set new. No, we want to set new here to reset everything. Here, the other thing we could do is cache the old current subselection, but we just won't create a new one. So rebuild requires it to already exist. Hell, we don't even need to do this. We're really just... I'm going to rename this to rebuild selection stuff in tile. That's the only thing we want this to do. Which means, actually, we don't have to pass the tile into the mouse, because at this point, it's going to be assumed that we have the tile and everything set up. We're going to make it a little bit more correct, because that's really what we're looking for. And paste this and paste this. So if it's a new tile, we create a new selection info, we give it the proper tile, and then we say, hey, build the selection stuff in tile. If it's the existing tile, then all we have to do is rebuild the selection stuff in tile, then we're going to be happy. All right, let's give that a try and see how that works. Oh, I have a... Oh, you don't take any arguments anymore. Yeah, which I think is going to be a lot cleaner and a lot better. Let's give that a go. So we still don't have the user interface that shows our selection info, but we've done a fair bit in this particular episode already. So here it's 0th because I selected the character. Then it's 2, which is the inventory, which makes sense. So in this tile here, it is an array of size 4, with the 0th being the character, the first being a null reference to furniture, the third, or sorry, so the 0th is the character, the 1th is the furniture, which is null in this case, the second is the inventory that's in the tile, and if I click again, it'll pick the third, which is the tile itself, and if I click one more time, we're back to the character. In this tile here, there should only be a 0 and a 3. 0, 3, 0, 3, perfect. This tile over here, there should only be a 2 and 3. Oh, no, that's correct, because this tile doesn't have a character. So it's an array only of size 3, which goes furniture, inventory, tile. So it's going to go to the 0th, which is the furniture, and then the tile, or the second, which is the tile itself. Perfect. And we don't have an example where we also have inventory, but that's good. And also, if we ended up with characters all stacked up in the same tile, which I could test. Right now, when we start a new world, I've got my characters kind of spread out here. But for the sake of being cool, if we go here and we change where we spawn these characters, and I have them spawn on top of one another, and then I hit play, we will have 3 characters on top of one another. You can't really see them, but they are there. If I go and shrink this to character sprite controller, we can see there are 3 characters. Let me just, we've got tiles already, but let's build floor technically. Oh, I think our circle cursor or something is missing for the floor thing, or maybe we never rebuilt it. Anyway, I'm just going to hit escape to get out of build mode. So now we're in selection mode. So if I click here, it'll just select tiles. If I click here, it should go 0 for the first character, 1 for the second character, 2 for the third character, and then 5 for the tile. Boom. Excellent. So now we're correctly cycling through everything over here, which I think is really good. I think is the sort of intuitive kind of feel we want for that. Okay, let's go and start on our little selection screen. Again, I still kind of want the debug info because that's pretty handy. And I think we will still sort of want to be able to just sort of mouse over things, but we also want to select things. So how are we going to do that? Well, if we compare to other games, again, if we think about maybe how it works in RimWorld, I mean, obviously, we don't want these buttons to just hang out like this. This looks stupid. At some point, we're going to want a proper interface for this. And in RimWorld, what it is, well, there's actually, if you're in selection mode, then you can select things, and then you sort of hit the build button down here. I'm trying to remember where the layout is, but I mean, you've got a sort of a pop-up menu that can come up. You can't really have both up, or they wouldn't be in the same way. Or imagine that we had all these buttons as sort of vertically aligned here, and you could like expand and shrink it or whatever, but then you can have the character info stick around right over here, which is probably the best way to do it. You know, is have a menu here, and you know, you click on there, then you click on furniture, and then you pick the kind of furniture that you want. And it could even, like, at that point, if it could be a fly open menu that does cover the character sheet for a little while. But yeah, I think maybe then it's probably okay if we have a panel here that we will move later on. But for now, the panel here will show you what you currently have selected. So let's go and figure out how we want to do that. So we're going to go over here, we're going to click on build floor, we're going to go into our user interface here. So in our user interface, we have our build menu, which is there, and then we have the furniture menu, which you can't quite see right now because it's empty and it builds itself programmatically. But to the right of that, so over here, we could have our character pane. So I think that's going to be okay. I think I like that. So in this canvas, I'm going to make a new, I guess, panel. I'm going to move it so that it's right after the furniture menu. Not that that matters for what we're about to do. And actually, in practice, I think we'll want to move it above it so that things can open over it, but that's going to be okay. And what I want to do is I want to have this anchored to the bottom right corner. And I want to have it moved over. I wonder, will it snap to the furniture? Well, snap to the middle, but that's not what I'm looking for. I wish we could see this. I guess I can increase the height temporarily. Or no? I guess it's because of the automatic vertical sizer. Let me turn that off. There we go. We can see the height, which means now I can grab this. And there. So there's the snap, and we'll give it a little bit of spacing. Well, we'll come up with a better way of laying this out in the future, but for now that's going to be perfectly fine. I'll turn on the automatic vertical sizer again on our furniture thing. That's going to be okay. So this is the selection panel. This shows you what you have currently selected. So let's go ahead and, I don't know, we'll give it a little bit of text at the top. That just says current selection. It's not going to be very sexy, but that's okay. Well, I'll retheme it in something soon enough, but I don't want it to look like another button. Definitely it's supposed to look different. So we're going to line it to the top. We're going to, oops, this version here, where the width is correctly set, and we'll center everything off, and there we go. Get something like that. So current selection, and I'm going to guess that we're going to want this to be shorter and a little bit wider. So something like this. So it is indexed to the bottom left corner. If we move the window around, it's going to do that, and if we bring it too short, then it's going to look really dumb. But lots of things are going to look really dumb right now, so that's okay. So current selection, and then we're going to want some sort of text. I think what I'm going to want to do here is probably just have just another text box like that. Have it take up the full thing, and then shrink it down so that it's just below the menu text. And that's it. And then I'll just leave this as a text box that we can fill in via the program or something of that nature. Selection panel, I will make it, let's say, non-transparent. And maybe we'll go and give it a little bit of padding on the left and right, just so that things aren't stuck right up against the border. And that's going to be okay. So this is going to be the title. And this is going to be, I think I'll just call it text. I think that's going to be perfectly fine. And then what are we going to do? Well, I think very much like the debug panel here, which has multiple objects with multiple individual little scripts to grab one bit of data. What I think I'm going to do is, it's actually a good question. I think it's going to be one component that just says something like, what did I call the other ones? This is the UI ones, right? Mouse over furniture type. So something like selection info text field. Something like that. So, you know, it sort of says what it does on the tin. Where did it get stuck? It would be in the root. There it is. I'm going to move you into the UI folder. Thank you very much. And open you up. No, open you up here. And this is actually attached to the text field itself. Why is everything red? There you go. I think it's possible because I'd moved things too fast after loading it. We're okay. So its job is going to be, we need a using Unity engine.ui, and you're going to do something like get component. We're going to cache this in a second. We're going to get our text component dot text equals woot to confirm that this is working. Hit play. And there you go. We can see it says woot. So what it's actually going to do is it's actually going to do something like this. We're going to get the mouse controller, MC. MC is equal to find object of type mouse controller. So we assume we only have one in the system, so it's going to find one right at the start. And I guess we'll also cache our text component like this. And we're going to say txt equals get component text. Again, the get component is quite fast as of Unity, blah, 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 whatever edition it is. And so it sort of internally caches, but we may as well explicitly cache. And so now what we're doing is something like text.text is equal to mc.my. Oh, I can't get my selection. Is it not public? Probably not. I mean, and we may not want it to be public, but for now, let's just go ahead and do that. And we're going to say mc.mySelection dot toString. It's not going to be a very useful string. Oh, object reference not set. Oh yeah, because we don't have a selection. So if this selection is equal to null, then just return right away. So we don't want to do anything. Actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to say something like, actually, we don't even have to set it blank. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say something like transform dot parent. Oh, I can't disable it. I would have to make it add an alpha group. Let's see here. So our selection panel here, we're going to add a, what is it called? Canvas group. This is correct. And then we can make it transparent or interactable or whatever. I'm going to make it a public field here. Public canvas group called canvas group. So it shows up nice in the inspector. So now we can grab the selection panel, drop it in there. And so what we can say here is if the selection is null, we're going to set our alpha to be 0 and interactable is equal to false. I don't remember if we also have to say block raycast. I don't know if we have to do both, but we may. So then we'll return and just drop out. But otherwise, we're going to ensure that we set the alpha to full. So if we've got a selection, we display the box. If we don't, we hide it. So if we hit play, this box should disappear immediately. And it does. And if I click, now we have a selection, so the box is back. And this is just doing the get string from our object. So it just reports what the object is, which isn't particularly informative, but it's there. So we're going to fill it in with more interesting text about our description next time. Thank you very much for watching another episode, folks, and I'll see you then. Hey, thank you to all the June patrons who support these videos through July and early August, and especially these Mike Check supporters. We've got Steven Stagger again, and Michael McClintock again, and Kale the Quick again. Lots of agains. Drazion, Adjective, Jason Yanity, Wes Olenbeving, Craig Mortel, Neil Blakey Milner, Speedy Savant, Valiant Cake Fiend, Aaron Toyson, Marius Fieldvold, Jan Torre Vel, Ole Peter Talgo, Julien Auger Lafont, Petrie Michaela, and absolutely everyone who has watched, shared, favorited, and subscribed. Thanks for continuing to make this a reality, and I'll see you next time.